Most visitor identification tools promise the same thing: reveal who's visiting your website. But the real difference shows up when how much or in how much data you get and how usable that data actually is. Hi, my name is Justin from LemReveal, and today we'll be comparing LeadBoxer and LemReveal, focusing on database size, enrichment depth, and visitor identification accuracy. So right now we are on LeadBoxer and we'll proceed to have a look at it all the way to LemReveal. So we'll be going through each tool or both tools at the same time. So both platforms, right, aim to turn anonymous data into website traffic and also that website traffic into usable data for outreach. So both those tools work in a similar manner to get the same outcome or goal. So instead of just seeing sessions, you see company names, visitor behaviors, and engagement signals. This allows your team or sales team to identify companies already interacting with your site or people already interacting with your site. But the quality of that insight there heavily, like it differs and it depends heavily on three things: how many companies can be identified, how deep the enrichment data is, and how accurate the matching or the matches are. So the data that's provided has to be accurate and has to be, real and not data that's made up by the tool. So when it comes to that, LeadBoxer relies on a combination of IP-based identification and enrichment data processes, and this gives it a solid coverage for identifying companies, especially in standard B2B environments. However, IP-based systems depend heavily on network mappings. So if it's for remote companies, it might be a bit difficult in that aspect. So LemReveal approaches this differently by combining multiple identification signals instead of relying on a single mapping data source, or primarily on a single data source. So with this aspect, that practical difference shows up in coverage quality. A larger or multi-layered dataset can increase the chances of identifying more relevant companies, not just more companies in overall, but the quality of that data has to matter as well. And because more data doesn't always mean better data, as you know, obviously, more doesn't mean high quality. So these are the tools that we'll be looking at, and we'll first start with LeadBoxer. This is how it looks like as soon as we click the link. And with that being said, you can also log in, get a demo or a free trial, and this is how the dashboard looks like. So same thing with LemReveal. We will quickly go in, right? And this is how it looks like before you log in. But after logging in or signing in, this is how the dashboard looks like. So both tools were on the dashboard and we'll be doing the comparison from there. So accuracy is where many teams get misled. Lead boxes identification is largely based on IP matching or IP address matching. This works well when companies use suitable or stable corporate networks, but becomes less reliable when the users are on VPN, which is what a lot of people use these days. Employees work remotely, like I've said before, and traffic comes from shared infrastructure. So that's another thing as well. This can sometimes result in partial or mismatched company identification. So the data might be a bit scrambled, but still works either way in some aspects. You just need to double check, and that can waste a little bit more of your time. So LemReveal focuses on improving match confidence by combining multiple signals before identifying a company. The goal here is to reduce false positives, not just increase detection value. So the trade-off becomes more apparent: more matches versus more reliable matches. So you pretty much get the gist of it on how you want your data to be like, or you can just simply use both tools and see how you work around the data that you receive. So obviously, once a company is identified, enrichment determines how useful the data is. In terms of LeadBoxer, it provides it provides standard firmographic data such as your industry, company size, your location, and engagement score. So that you can use obviously to gauge how you can, interpret this data. This is where the engagement score is and how you can make best use of this data. So after, let's say, installing the tracking pixel, this engagement scores will change based on the traffic you get on your site. So the difference isn't just data quantity, it's how easily that data can be used for outreach decisions. So that's one of the aspects that you should look at or focus on a bit more. LeadBoxer is structured around tracking and scoring. You monitor visitors, review scores, and segment leads. It's straightforward and it works well for teams that want visibility and simple prioritization. So when it comes to LemReveal right over here, which obviously focuses more on turning visitor data into actionable sales signals. So here the focus is outreach and sales signals. That means like clear prioritization, intent focus insights, and tighter connections to outbound workflows. So instead of just seeing activity, the system pushes towards action. This is where the outreach happens. We are trying to reach out to those, people who are likely to be interested in purchasing our services and using our services for themselves. And it's usually people who visit specific pages a couple of times and come back a couple of times, let's say in a few days or in a week. So in overall, both tools solves the core problem, identifying website visitor. LeadBoxer is a solid choice, right? If you want, straightforward visitor tracking, engagement scoring, basic enrichment, and simple segmentation. I can go on and on about this, but we'll just cut it short and have it at that. And LemReveal is best suited for like if you want your higher confidence identification, deeper enrichment for sales, and stronger intent signals interpretation. Again, I can go on and on with this, but here the key insight is visitor identification isn't about revealing companies, it's about revealing the right companies and knowing what to do next. This is where your interpretation comes in because that's the most important factor or the important aspect here is reaching out to the right people and not just anyone because your competitors might view your sites, etc. And you're reaching out to everyone might just show that your company is not, or your sales team in general is not that competent in terms of your outreach and data interpretation. So the decision comes down to your goal, what your company wants, what your team hopes to achieve with the data that you get. So if you want visibility, LeadBoxer works well for you. But if you want actionable sales intelligence, platforms built around signal quality and prioritization will have an edge. So with that being the case, LemReveal is the one for you. So that's just how it works and just the gist of it. And that's it from me in terms of going through a rundown of these two tools or just comparing these two tools. And let's say if you find some an interesting feature while exploring these tools on your own and doing your own comparison, you can always leave that in the comment below and we will discuss it and get back to you with another video, of course. So the description, like in the description, the links are there to the two tools. You can explore it at your own leisure. And that's it from me. I will catch you on the next video.